Right, so welcome again, everyone. Many of you will be in the session from last week, and you will notice we have many more participants today because we saw that there is such a lot of interest in this session, these sessions overall, and we've opened them up for 5,000 people. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your interest. Today, we're going to talk about why Scopus is essential for your literature review. I'm going to just stop my video and then I'll just go over to my slides and we can talk about literature review. But before we do that, I'm sure that Tureya mentioned this and I couldn't understand everything, but please, if you have questions, add them in the Q&A box. We are recording the session. We will share the recording. We will share the slides and we will send you an email automatically. You don't have to give us your email address. Zoom is capturing your email and we will send you the information to download your certificates. For today's program, we're going to just look again at what is Scopus. Just a quick recap. We're going to look at, I'm not going to do the access and register because Tureya already did that, but we are going to look at what is a literature review and then why is Scopus useful for conducting a review. If we have questions if we have time, we'll do questions, but we will also answer the questions as we go along. So please add them to the Q&A box. A recap on what is Scopus. It is a global multidisciplinary database for discovering academic literature. It also has visualization tools to analyze search results, as well as metrics to measure research performance. And you will see in the next slide here that it is source agnostic. So we cover the journals of more than 7,000 publishers. So overall, Scopus contains about 90 million documents. And these documents are, in 27,000, just over 27,000 active journals. When you go into Scopus, you will see that there are more journals. There are more than 40,000 journals, but the active journals are just over 27,000. And each publication that we index in Scopus is linked to an author profile automatically, and it's also automatically linked to affiliation, to an affiliation profile. So that helps us, not only you as researchers, masters and PhD students, but it also helps universities, it helps government officials to measure and analyze the research performance of the country and compare it with other institutions. Right. So as you can see on the right-hand side, Scopus has many different use cases. You can find journal information. In Scopus, you can track a researcher through the author profile. You can track the impact and the output of a researcher. You can find other researchers who are also publishing, but the focus is going to be on this fourth one, is to find the current research, what has been published in a research area. That is the focus of today. So just to give you an idea of the types of documents that we cover in Scopus, it is journal articles, conference papers, books, and patents. So large numbers. I'm not going to repeat the numbers because there are really large numbers. I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense to everybody. But a large coverage of the different types of scholarly output and across all the subject areas. So it's multidisciplinary. It covers physical sciences, health sciences, social sciences, and humanities, as well as life sciences. We make no distinction in Scopus whether a journal is open access or whether it's a subscription based. And we also collect preprints from the major preprint servers. So you will, not by means of search, but in an author profile, we also match them with their preprints. We also get articles from publishers before they have been published, right? So as soon as an article is accepted, we already get the record of that publication and we make it available to you in Scopus. So you have the latest information on your scientific area. So what gives Scopus authority and what makes it legitimate is that it goes, all the journals that we cover in Scopus go through a rigorous evaluation process and a re-evaluation process. So we have 14 criteria which journals have to comply with before they are accepted to be indexed in Scopus. So we make sure that the journals are of high quality, that they are ethical, and they have good journal management. And then throughout, we also re-evaluate them. So that makes it easier, that allows you as a researcher to trust the information that we have in Scopus. So as we look at our topic of today, a literature review. So a literature review is basically a comprehensive summary of previous research on a topic, as discussed in scholarly academic articles, books, and other sources relevant to the particular research area. Right? So every PhD student, every master student will know that a part of your study is always a literature review. And this review should enumerate, describe, summarize, and objectively evaluate and clarify the previous research in your field. So in essence, it creates a landscape for the reader and giving him a full understanding of the developments in the field as it unfolds in the literature. So, and this landscape informs the reader also that the author has assimilated all the previous significant work in the field of the research. So that makes it important also to ensure the trustworthiness of your own research. So what are the steps in a literature review? So firstly, you have to have your topic, of course. So you have to set the topic in context also. Then you have to find information sources. Where are you going to do your literature research? A good starting point is Scopus, because Scopus is very broad, it is global, it is multidisciplinary. So it's a good starting point, it is scholarly. So it's a good starting point, but that does not mean that you focus only on Scopus. You still use your specific domain databases. If you have a specific database for physics that you have to use, you do that. So what I'm not saying today is you use only Scopus, but Scopus is a very good starting point to get that overview of all the literature globally. Then you get your information from the information sources, and that is where I'm going to focus today. So when you use your information source, which is Scopus today, that is the focus, but then the next steps are, of course, then getting that information out of your findings and you're organizing your information, positioning the whole literature review, what is your approach going to be, and writing, of course. But we have one focus today, and how do we use the database? So the first thing in terms of doing a search, a literature search within Scopus or any database for that matter, where you look for literature, is you have to define your topic. So you write down your topic, your research question. That's step one. Step two is that you identify the key concepts within that research question. So you have all the words and the phrases that are relevant. A good way to do that is to use a mind map. So that's why I've included this little mind map image to remind you that this is a good way of thinking about what are all the concepts that I have to cover in my literature review. And then for each of these concepts, I have to find synonyms, because different researchers use different words, different phrases when they describe the concept. And also we're looking at this globally. So we have to think very widely about what are the possible keywords that researchers have used in this field. And then we combine them together using operators. Now in Scopus, you don't have to use the operators because it is automated, but you can also use them. So it is useful to understand how the operators, the major operators and or not, it is good to understand how they work, because you can create a very powerful search strategy if you know how to use these operators. So remember, when you're using and, you are making your search query smaller. When you are using or, you're making it bigger because it is either this or that, but you want both of them, or all the phrases that you're mentioning you want included. And when you're using not, you are excluding that specific keyword or phrase that you are using. So in creating your search strategy, we're going to look at a specific example today, a very simple one. But this is very important because if you don't use the right keywords and you don't combine them in the right way, you could miss important information and you could have basically a weak search strategy. So taking time in making sure that you really covered all the keywords and all the phrases is a very important step. So don't start your search before you've really thought about this carefully. So some of the other operators that can help you in creating your search string is the loose phrase, which is the one in inverted comma. So the inverted comma is where I've got this example of heart attack. It means that those two words are next to each other. So the search engine is looking for them next to each other, but it does not mean in the same order. So it will also retrieve documents where it can mean something, somebody was attacked and it gave him a heart attack, something like that. So the attack comes before the heart. Just means that heart attack or the two words are next to each other, but not necessarily in the same order. When you are using the exact phrase, and this is the second one where we have oyster toadfish, when we use the curly brackets, it means that it is an exact phrase. Now, this is a very powerful operator because it means that the two words in the phrase are in the same order. The search engine will look for it in the same order. The next one is the proximity operator, where we have the example pain within 5 words of morphine. So the words are not next to each other, but there are 5, not more than 5 words apart. So using W/ and a number, it can be anything between, 1 and, I don't think there's a limit, but usually it's between 1 and 10. So you want your keywords to be within 5 words of each other, for example. And then the ones that are quite well known, the asterisk will replace a character. So if you don't know what is the suffix of the word, so you're looking for a helicopter, but you are not sure how it's spelled, or it could have different variation, you just type in HE with the asterisk, and the search engine will pick up all the words that start with HE. So that's not a good example because there'll be many. But in principle, that's how it's used. And then you can also replace one character with a question mark, right? So these operators, you will find also an explanation in Scopus. I will show you when we go live. And these can help you make your search strategy very powerful. The examples that we're going to do today is the extent of the extent to which machine learning is used in food production. And I've got a few, these are not comprehensive or exhaustive, but there are examples of the types of keywords that you would be using. Most of them are phrases. I've used the loose, the loose bracket, basically the inverted commas, but you could also use the exact phrase and put them in curly brackets, which will mean that it will not pick up intelligence and artificial where the two are exchanged. They are in the same order, right? So these are the key phrases that we will be using in our search. And this is just to demonstrate that it is very important to make a list of all the relevant synonyms and phrases that are relevant for your study. Another thing that is important and that can be useful when you are doing a search for literature is to understand the order in which Boolean is searched, right? So the or and the and the and not have a particular order in which they function. So in this example, we are searching for sensor within 15 words of robot and water or orbit or planet. And now to show how the search engine will search for this, what is the protocol used when searching, you will see that when you use Boolean, or is the first search option. So it will first, the search engine will first search for all the words that are linked together by or, then it will search for the proximity operator, and then it will then it searches the and. So it will then combine those two into a single search, right? So I'm mentioning this if you are interested in creating your own search strings using Boolean order or Boolean operators. This is important to keep in mind. But in Scopus, this is also automated. So you don't have to use the operators if you don't wish to do so. So when you're doing a literature search, it's not only about finding the literature, but it's also important that it must be validated, right? So it's important to show where was the research published? Was it a scholarly article? Was it a conference proceeding? Is it of an academic quality? When was it published? Has it been peer reviewed? Does the author have good credentials? And is the article free from bias, right? So all of these things you have to try to identify when you are looking at the literature. It's not only about just, finding a number of publications. And Scopus also helps us in this process to make sure that the articles that we find are credible. So it helps us to validate the research as well. So first of all, why is it useful to use Scopus? Just a few ideas here, and this is because Scopus is so comprehensive, covering more than 7,000 publishers, more than 27,000 journals. When you embark on research, it is important to make sure that you are familiar with all the previous research in the field, and Scopus allows you to get that extensive overview of all the research that has been published. The second reason why Scopus is useful is because it gives you abstracts. So the abstracts help you to determine whether a specific paper is relevant for your research, because every publication in Scopus has an abstract, and that allows you to very quickly evaluate. You don't have to read the paper. You don't even have to read the introduction. You can just read the abstract, and it helps you to determine, is this relevant or not? So it saves a lot of time. And then it is peer reviewed. So all the papers in Scopus are peer reviewed. So, and that ensures your research is scholarly and it is validated by experts. Scopus indexes only peer reviewed journals, and they are independently selected and approved by the Content and Selection Advisory Board to ensure that the literature is scholarly, and that helps you to be sure that you are building on a solid foundation. Your research is also on a solid foundation. And then we have citations in Scopus, and this helps us to retrieve relevant publications on the one hand, but also to distinguish the top publications, right? So because the technology behind the citation index is that you also find publications that are linked together by citations, not only by keywords. It helps you to find publications that you haven't necessarily identified with your keywords, but it will also be in your search results. And then you can also use your citations and regard them as endorsement of the research or the papers that you find. And then finally, we talked about this a lot last time, is that Scopus also allows you to analyze your search results. So when you do your search, it will give you that trend overview of, the trend over time. who are the top authors, which countries are leading in this research area, in which subdiscipline are they focusing on, what types of papers are they writing, and then the journals, very important to know in which journals are covering your research area. So we'll look at this again in the live demo. And then finally, also Scopus helps you to select quality journals. So the journals in Scopus have a quality indicator, which is called Cite Score. It's an average number of citations per paper that the journal receives. And then SNP and SJR also give you a metric which indicates the quality of the journal based on how many citations is that journal receiving. And that helps us also to be sure that we are not publishing in predatory journals. Not that you will find a predatory journal in Scopus, but it helps you to identify or to gauge the quality of the journal in which the research you found has been published. So I'm not going to go further into predatory publishing because next week, same time as now, we are going to focus only on predatory journals. We're going to take a deep dive into how do we know something is predatory, how can we avoid it. So for now, we are going then into the live demo of how we will use this search. Are there any questions before I continue with the live? Okay, I will dive in. So you can see I have moved now to Scopus, to the homepage of Scopus. And we are on the page where we can do a search. So there are different searches we can do. And today we are focusing on a document search. The two other searches that we can do are author search and affiliation search. Research and discovery will not be available for you because it is it's still in a pilot phase. So focusing on a document search, we will use the Scopus form basically to do our search strategy. So there are two ways in which we can do this. We can either use the guidance that Scopus is providing here by giving us search within a specific field. The default is article title, abstract, or keyword. You can also search for article title. If you want your keywords to be in the title of the document, which is a little bit dangerous to do because most authors don't put the most important keywords in the title. They should, but they don't. So if you select article title, you might miss publications where the main keyword is only mentioned in the abstract. So article title, abstract, and keyword is the default, so we'll keep it at that. The other way of doing this, or of doing a search, is the advanced document search option. And this is where you get to use the operators yourself. So you can select your field that you want to search in by clicking on the plus, and then you type in your keyword and you say artificial intelligence, and you use your operator, say within 5 words of I don't know, ChatGPT. I'm not sure if anybody's written about that yet, and let's search. So no. Let's see if I can, maybe I have to put an operator in there as well. So this is a dangerous example because I didn't practice this in time. No. So I'll show you what is I'll go back to my basic search and get my example that I saved. So I've got my saved search that I mentioned that we were going to focus on today. And that is smart farming. And I'm going to get my results so that you can see how I created my search strategy. So in the basic search, which is on the front page, on the home page, you will get your fields. And I've got in my field, I've got deep learning or machine learning or artificial intelligence or algorithm or digital farming or digital agriculture, right? So all these are synonyms that I want the search engine to look for. And I want to also have articles that include agriculture or farming or crops or food production, right? It's very simple. And this is how you would create this in the basic search. If I click on I just want to show you what it looks like then in the advanced search. So in the advanced search, you get to create your own search query by selecting the field code that you want to and adding the operator as you think is necessary. Right. So this is the difference between the advanced search and the basic search, where in the basic search, you don't have to really think about the operators. You can just select the field in which you want to search. Right. So I'm going to pretend I typed all of that. Let me just go back to my advanced, to my basic, and then I'll click on search. So in this, we have two versions at the moment of Scopus, so just be aware of that. So I'm in the new version, where it's very similar, but in the new version, you can see your search results at the bottom of the page, right? So here we have 130 documents that were found on this search strategy that we've created. And now 130 documents are not too many to work through, but if we want to filter them further, we can use the side panel, the filtering side panel. So if our literature review only wants to look at the development in this field, and this is something you can decide in your study, is how, the time range that you want to cover, because some fields are young, like this field is very young, but you can also have a very, large field of study and you can't cover everything. So you want to know what is the publications of the last 5 years, for example. Then you can set your time range. So this is between 2021 and 2023, just an example, but I want to cover everything, or more or less. Then you have got your authors. And now under the subject area, if your focus is going to be on computer science and engineering, for example, you can select that and not look at anything that was published in a journal that was, say, for instance, veterinary, right? So somebody published an article around, the use of smart farming, but it was in a veterinary journal. If you're not interested in that, you can exclude that. So use your filtering panel to make your results as manageable as possible. If you know that you don't want to have any chapters, or you can look at all your different types of articles or types of documents, and you don't want book chapters, you only want to look at articles, conference papers, and reviews, you can select those as well, right? So your filtering panel can really help you to be more efficient in getting only those papers that are really relevant for your study. So the next thing to do is to get some trend information out of this, and to do that, you can click on Analyze Results. So in the new interface, it's on the side here to the right. In the old version of Scopus, which is still active, it will be in the line here where you see all export and download, right? But I'm going to click on Analyze Result. And this is where Scopus really gives you some intelligence, because now Scopus is already helping you to make sense of your papers, or your literature that you found. So you can see that there have been publications on smart farming or the use of AI in farming for some times, but it really took off a lot from 2019 and really went up very high. So this drop in 23 is, of course, we've only had 2 months of publications, but really went very high from 2019. So this is definitely a trend in research in this field. And then on the left-hand side, you can read these articles then by if you want to first focus on the most recent publications, but it allows you to read it chronologically if you want to read it chronologically. But here you've got that very nice graph that you can immediately, you already have a trend that you can mention in your literature review. Then going down, if you click on the window for documents by source, this will tell you which journals are publishing in this field. This is also something that you can use in your literature review to say that the research results are predominantly published in computers and electronics in agriculture. This is a journal. So of the 130 documents that we have, or papers that we have, 14 were in one journal. And we can also look at these journals then specifically and make more sense of the quality of the journal. So on the graph, on the chart, what you see is in terms of the volume of publications. So where are these 130 documents, in which journals are they? So it will show you that, this one, this is computers and electronics in agriculture, has been the most consistent in publishing in this research area. So obviously this is very important, and you have to know that journal well and make sure that you cover all the articles in that journal in your literature review. But this doesn't tell us which is the most important journal. It does give us an indication that the cite score is 11.8, which means that articles are cited 11.8 times on average over a 4-year period in this journal, which is an indication of the quality. Or you can click on this link, compare the sources, and then it will compare on the quality, not on the volume of articles that it covers in the field, but on the quality of the journal itself. And here you will see here also computers and electronics in agriculture is the most, has the highest, cite score of all the journals that are publishing in this field. But they are quite close, right? So you can also very much, these are remote sensing and sensors. These journals are also very important in the field. They've got very high cite scores. And even these ones, advances in intelligent systems, no, this is a low score. So 0.9, if it is below 1.0, and this one 0.5, it's not a good cite score. It means that the articles in this journal is not cited that many times. It's not necessarily a bad journal. It could be that it is very specialized, or it is very young. There might be other reasons for it, but generally, it is a good indicator if a journal's cite score is high. And it is important to take note for your literature review of what is the most important journals in your field. I lost my screen there. Let's go back. And so you can go on. So for your literature review, it would be also important to note in this, which countries are focusing on this. So you can see here, a lot of the research is coming from India, China, and then the US. You can scroll down to see if there's any, countries from our region or Africa that are contributing. So in this date, in the articles that we retrieved, there are 2 articles from Morocco. So this would be very important to also look at. So what is the local approach to this research area, as opposed to the research that is coming from India and China? What is the difference? So if you can use this classification to make that kind of differentiation in your literature review. So looking at the country is one of the ways that you can do that. And another way, oh my gosh, I keep clicking on the wrong button. But there you go back. And the last one, I'm not going to show all of them. We did this last week as well. But it can also be helpful if you look at the documents by type and to just take note of other reviews that have been done on this research field, right? Because that gives you a very nice overview of how the literature of this research area has been described by other researchers, and you could take a different approach to that. And then finally, I wanted to mention the what was it? It was also affiliation. Oh, also here the subjects by discipline or by subject area. So here you can also see that this subject area that we're looking at is quite multidisciplinary, because the researchers are publishing in computer science journals, in engineering journals, agriculture journals, and then a whole number of other journals, right? So if you prefer to keep it more to the pure sciences, or to keep it, or to have a specific approach, then you can select one of the disciplines as well, and you can use that as a filter, basically. So I think I click now on agriculture, and then you will have only a list of the documents or the papers that were published in agriculture journals, right? So in that way, you can also narrow down your papers that are in that you have retrieved, right? So that is one thing that you can do. Analyzing your results is a Scopus helps you to do that, because in your literature review, it is important to mention who are the most important authors, which are the most important journals in this field, which areas of the world, if it's a regional, phenomenon, what type of research is being done in the different regions of the world. So in this sense, Scopus is helping a lot, to do that. Obviously, from the point onwards here, let me just go back where we were and back to my results. The next step would be always very important, just as a reminder, is to save your search, right? So here's a save your search option, because you put a lot of effort into creating your search strategy. So you don't want to go and type this all over again and maybe make a spelling mistake. So make sure that you save your search and that you don't have to come back to it, because that also, as documents are added to Scopus, it will automatically, be added to your search. You can also set up an alert so that you get a notification when there's a new document for you. And you can export this list. There are different things that you can do. The first thing that is important to do is to, after you've done all your filtering using your filter panel, you can save to list. So you can create a list of your results. So save to list, and then you just give your list a name. I'm not going to do this, but it says we save all 130 of the results, or you can select a specific, range. So I'm not going to do this, but you can save this to a list, and then when you are ready to work further on going through your list, because it saves your abstract as well. So if you go back to your list, go to your profile, go to save lists, and there you will see a list of all your, I haven't saved this as a list, but you will find your list, and you can go through your publications and do, read them. You don't have to do your search and all of that again. You can also export all the, if you select the export, remember that export is only, export, you can export this list of references, and you can select, if you want to save it directly to your reference manager. You can select any of these reference managers. I remember now somebody asked me if Zotero is one, and I said no, but it is. So I'm sorry about that. But these are the reference managers that we have available. So you can select these results and you can export them. So go to the arrow and then select the reference manager, and it will send you these references into your reference manager. Or you can export this list, select CSV, and you can select which fields you want to export. And then if you want to export, if you want to download the full text, right? If you want to see the actual PDF version, full text, this is not available for all of the papers. It's only available for 49 of the 130, but you can download 50 full text papers. So then you click on download. So what we want to know also when we are looking at literature is the top paper, which are the most important papers in this field. And usually the indication is either the journal in which it was published, so which is the top journal in which it was published. We use the analyze results for that, and we look at all the papers that were published in that journal that was at the highest cite score. Another way of looking at what are the most important papers in this field is to look at the citations count. So you can use the sort by and then click on the down arrow and select cited by highest, right? And then you can see that this paper, a critical review on computer vision and artificial intelligence in food industry, was published in 2020, and it's got 96 citations. Right, so obviously this is well endorsed by other researchers in the field. It's probably quite a general, because it's a critical overview, but it's important to note which of the publications are the most cited. And then from there, as we looked at it last week as well, we can also see if you click on the title of the article, it will take you to the details page where you will find more metrics, interesting metrics. For instance, how many times has this article been tweeted? So in your literature review, you can also refer to, this phenomenon in the research is not only relevant for academics, but it is also relevant in the broader society as per the 141 tweets. And then you can actually look at some of these tweets and elaborate on that as part of your literature review. So it's not only academic value, it also has, for the broader society, is interested in the research that is done, that was reported in this critical review. So here you can see in Twitter, if you click on Twitter, you can see the actual tweets, and you can do an analysis on what are the social media users saying about the research that was published that they came across. Right. So this is a lot of tweets. So I'm not going to wait for them. I'll go back to my search. So on the actual details page, you can also expand your literature that you found by looking at the related documents. So these related documents might be documents that are using a different set of keywords, but they are also relevant for your research. So this is also artificial intelligence in the background, helping you uncover other publications that might be relevant for your search. And just to end this demo with, when you've gone through all your literature on a detail level and looked at each of these articles to see whether they are relevant for your study, you can also create a bibliography of this automatically. It will create your a list in a nice order according to what you have selected. I'm not going to do that now, but what system, Harvard or APA that you are using, that you can keep, and you can also look at further references. So the references here are a list of the publications that are referencing these publications that we have retrieved. So you can expand your literature review if you want to, right? And make sure that you really covered everything. So I hope with that, I've given you an idea of how Scopus can help you to be very comprehensive in your search, but also intelligent in the sense that it already gives you some trends and leads you to the top papers that you should definitely, include in your literature review. So let me go back to my slides. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to add, except to remind you that in Scopus, there is always an option to find help. If you get stuck on how to do something, just go to the question mark and then use the contact us. The chat works quite well. And then if you want to know more about Scopus and new developments, we have blogs, we have a Twitter account, and we have an information site that you can follow as well. So with that, I want to conclude. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And then if there's a few minutes time, I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me just go back to see if I can stop sharing. I don't know if you want to highlight any questions to Raya. It's really my pleasure. So remember, next week we are talking about predatory journals. Same time, same place. I look forward to seeing all of you.
Sorry, Lucia, my mic was disabled. So I have here many questions.
Okay.
So we'll try to find the most interesting for all.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow what you were saying, so I don't know if it was answered during your presentation. I was responding to the questions in the Q&R, so sorry if I give you a question you have already given a response. How to include or exclude papers based on the number of citations?
That's an interesting question. I don't think that's possible. I think the only way that you would do that is if you are, let me just share my screen. If you are doing your search, sorry, no, I don't want to do this. Second screen, sorry. Yes, so if you are doing your search and you've got your results, it would be is to use the sorting, so that you have your citations with the lowest number of citations. So you can sort by the number of citations, but you can't exclude citations. But be careful of excluding uncited publications, because they might be uncited because they're very new, but they could be very good. But that's the only way I can think of to manipulate around citations. Thanks.
Okay, another question. How can I be sure that an indexed journal will be indexed in 2023?
An indexed journal?
Yeah.
So I don't know, for journals to be indexed, the journal editor has to apply for indexing. The evaluation process is more than a year. So after the journal applied for indexing, there will still be another year before the journal will be visible in, if it is, accepted or approved, it will take a year, approximately, not always, approximately a year before it will be visible in Scopus. If it's an article, we get the articles from the publishers. So, yeah, it depends a lot on the publishers. It's an electronic feed that we have with the publishers, and it depends a lot, but it could be between 2 weeks, 2 months, sometimes it's 6 months. But the earliest I would say is 2 weeks. But if you publish an article, give it at least 2 months before you start to query, why is it not in Scopus? 2 months.
Okay, there is many questions about how to select the best journal that will be presented in the next webinar on 9th March. In the 16th, selecting the right journal for your research paper. So, nous allons sauter toutes les questions en relation avec comment choisir la meilleure revue pour un article. Donc, il y a une question qui demande d'expliquer la différence entre les types d'open access. Si vous êtes sur la page Facebook, sur la page Scopus, sous les types d'accès, il y a Learn More, vous pouvez avoir plus d'informations sur chaque type d'accès. There was a question about the open access type, so I answered. Terminé. Can we find thesis in Scopus? I think
no. Index. No, theses are not indexed in Scopus, unless they are published as a book. Then it might be, but not as a rule.
Okay, I have here a question from the last webinar, and it's also here. Hello. I conducted a systematic review on Scopus, which I published in Animist Journal. Due to the quality of my work, I was recommended to translate it with minor modifications and submit it to Scopus Indexed Journal. Can I do that?
Yes, of course. Okay. Yes, that would be wonderful. So it would be important then to go to, in Scopus, to go to sources and to find a suitable journal, in which to publish your article. Then it will give your article more visibility if it's in a Scopus journal. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Donc, pardonnez-moi si je rate ou je zappe une question parce qu'il y a plein de questions sur la rubrique questions-réponses. Donc, j'essaie d'en choisir les pertinentes et celles qui intéressent tout le monde et qui intéressent cette session pour les poser. Donc, excusez-moi. How to sort results by relevant citation count or publication type to find the most useful literature for my project.
All right, so that is a good question. So there are many when you sort your literature. So under the sort by option, there is also an option for relevance. So under relevance, we're using different variants to look at. So it would be the relevance in terms of the position of the keyword within the document. So it uses different parameters to give you an indication of the most relevant, of the relevancy based on the position of the keywords that you're using within the document. So yes, so you can just select relevance, or you can, that's one of the options that you can select, except for the newest or the most recent or the most cited, the least cited, and by date, of course. Yes, even alphabetically. But relevance is a good option. It uses different parameters than just doing so by date.
How can I export bibliometric data about search query?
About the search query itself. Let me see. So if you go to the advanced search and you edit your advanced search. So sometimes a search query can be a whole page full, you know, it can be quite long. So that's a good question. I don't see an option to export this though. Yeah, unfortunately, you would have to copy and paste. So you can just copy and paste your whole search strategy. But yes, yeah, unfortunately, you won't be able to export this. Yeah. Oh, so sorry about that. Let me just check here. So it keeps a history of all your searches that you've done. And then, okay, you can set up an alert and you can save the search and you can edit the search and you can delete it, but you can't print it. So unfortunately, you have to copy and paste to keep your search strategy, or you must save it. So if you save your search strategy, obviously you don't have to retype it again.
Can we find articles written in French in Scopus?
You can, if you do your search. Let me just get my results. I'm not sure if there are any French articles in this specific data set, but these results. But if you use your filter panel on the left-hand side and you scroll right down, so sorry for the scrolling, but I'm going to scroll right down. Sorry. And you'll have language. So here we've only got English and Chinese, but usually if there are French articles in the results, then you can select them from your from your filter panel. Let's see. If you are, let me, while you're looking at the other questions, I just want to go to the advanced again. Let's see if I can find a. So we don't textual content. So we don't have a field where you can oh yeah, language, right, language. So if you are using in the advanced search, in the field codes, amongst the field codes, you can scroll down and under document, there's an option for language and you select the plus. And in that plus, you have to type in French. And use your, in advanced search, you have to use your operators. And now search, let me see if I've done everything. So, yeah, so Scopus retrieved 500 documents that on artificial intelligence that the article itself is French. Not the article, the journal, basically. The journal it's a French journal. So again, if I scroll down to, but now you will see that they are, so these journals, some of these journals are then multi-language. They have German and Spanish in them, it seems, as well as English. But let me see if we go to, if we select open access, for instance. And we click on this. It's a very recent article. and you open the PDF. It's just taking some time. But I think you can already see that even the subtitle is in French. So this would be an article in French, yes. So yes, indeed, it is possible to find only using that field code under document for language. And then you can search specifically for that. I haven't done that from the basic search, but I can see if that is possible as well.
Okay. Donc, juste pour préciser, il y a des questions sur combien payer pour publier sur Scopus. Scopus ne publie pas les articles. Scopus indexe les revues. Ce sont les revues qui publient les articles. Donc, si vous avez des questions sur combien payer ou bien comment payer, est-ce qu'on paye ou pas, vous devez voir la politique de chaque revue. Les revues qui sont indexées sur Scopus, vous pouvez les trouver dans la barre de recherche en haut sur source. Il y a toutes les revues indexées Scopus et là, vous pouvez voir la politique, vous consultez chaque revue et voir sa politique de publication et son modèle économique.
So I've just discovered because I haven't used it myself, but in the basic search option, there's also under the fields, you can select a language and you can type in French, and then in your add a search field and the rest of your search strategy, say artificial intelligence or whatever your search strategy is, and it will retrieve only, publications from journals that are also French, have a classification for French, yes.
There's many questions about what does mean relevance in the sorted by field. So
in the sorted by field, right? To get I would have to look up what is the exact parameters that are being used. So because there are, let me see if we can find it quickly. So what does relevance mean in Scopus? So this is also an advertisement for using the information. So what is the search engine? Let's see. Okay, so here are the parameters that are used to rank the score of relevance. So it takes into account the number of hits, how significant is the word, where in the document it was found, the position in the document, the proximity of the keywords to each other, and then completeness. So you see, it takes into consideration a whole, it's quite a complex calculation that it takes into account. So I'm not going to read through all of this. It's a very good question, and thank you for asking that, because it takes into consideration all of these factors to come up with a relevant score, and then it ranks it in that relevant score. But I would suggest just going to the question mark on the search page and type in relevance and take a look at the definition of each of those parameters.
Okay, Lucia, I think that we will never end the questions. There are many. Are so sorry. I think the last question is how can I missed it. Can I rely on a cited article which is not indexed in Scopus, if I remember?
Yes, of course. Yes. So I would say it is just important if you are using Scopus, you have this automatic there's an automatic endorsement because the journals have been curated, the journals have gone through a selection process. So we know that the quality of the journals are good that we index in Scopus. So we can trust when we find a document in Scopus and it's cited, we can trust it automatically. If we find a cited document that is not in Scopus, it doesn't mean that it's not a good one. It just means that you have to do a bit of a check on, is this really a good journal? What is make sure it's not a predatory journal, for example. It just might be, accidental that the journal is not covered in Scopus. So yes, so definitely it is possible to also trust other sources. You just need to do your own checks then, whereas in Scopus you have a guarantee almost that the articles are of a certain quality.
Je pense que nous avons dépassé le temps alloué à cette formation, Lucia. I think it's time to finish this webinar. Yeah, sure. We are sorry for all the participants that we could not answer their questions. Donc, dernière précision, many questions about certificate. Vous allez recevoir les attestations de participation via email. Vous allez recevoir un email qui contient un lien vers Research Academy et vous allez suivre le lien pour télécharger l'attestation et pour télécharger aussi l'enregistrement vidéo. Donc c'est ça. Il y a des questions sur le dernier webinaire. Donc, les attestations ont été envoyées à tous les inscrits. Je ne dis pas les participants, mais tous les inscrits. Donc, si quelqu'un ne la reçoit pas, il doit chercher dans les spams. Je vous remercie pour l'intérêt que vous portez pour nos sessions de formation. Pour cette session spécialement, beaucoup de questions. Nous allons essayer, bien sûr, de les prendre en considération. Et on vous donne rendez-vous le 9 mars pour le prochain webinaire Avoiding Predatory Journals, How Scopus Helps. Thank you very much, Lucia.
You're welcome. See you next week.
Next
Bye-bye.
week.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.